Hey Defenders, welcome back to the channel. There's a lot going on as far as news, so this is going to be a pretty heavy week, and that's why we're putting out another video again today. But real fast, hey, holidays are coming just around the corner. Real quick, you got a loved one that's a sportsman, they're a shooter. They love their firearms and everything, and their firearm is nasty and disgusting. Tell them to actually get a cleaning kit or order one for them. Get this thing under the Christmas tree. This is GuardTech Plus cleaning kits. We got these things in. They're ready to ship. We're going to have them out by November 15th. That's the goal. And 60 plus pieces inside of it. Vertical storage for the jags inside. Really, really good kit. Even comes with a bore rope or your choice of a chamber brush if you'd rather have a setup more for an AR. But it'll clean, either kit will clean anything from 22 to 12 gauge. Really great kit. Again, they're going to ship out here pretty fast in time for the holidays. And they're coming in at $54.99. So get in there. The link will be down in the description below. And get these things underneath the tree for your loved ones. And that way you're ahead of the curve when it comes to your Christmas shopping. So how about that, right? Now, let's talk about more election stuff. This kind of flew under the radar, but I'm going to butcher her name real fast, but Holy Vang, and I'll just say Miss Vang. Miss Vang, who is a Hmong immigrant to the United States, her and her parents and grandparents came into the United States illegally. And why is this a big deal? Well, earlier this year, she had come out and stated live on the actual Minnesota Representatives floor that her and her parents are illegal in the United States.
And because his mother had died, my father, as the one processing the paperwork, put my grandmother down as his mother. And so I am illegal in this country. My parents are illegal here in this country.
Well, she just won the mayorship in St. Paul. So now she will be the St. Paul mayor over Mr. Carter. So Carter is out, Vang is in. And why is this a big deal? Well, what you're seeing is a huge shift even further left, as she is a DFL member and a Democratic Socialist. So this is another big swing in not a good direction. And how is this linking to the overall what's happening in the country as far as politics? Well, you just had Nancy Pelosi announce her retirement after 40 years as a public servant. I say public servant, but it shouldn't be a career, right? I'm definitely of that opinion where when it comes to politics, if you're a representative for the people, even for senators and congressmen, there need to be term limits on these positions. Now, the big deal with that is you're watching a changing of old guard in the Democratic Party. And now, also, while we're looking at these changes that are happening in not just St. Paul, we just had Mayor Frey win his election in Minneapolis for the mayorship there. And that's going to be very interesting what's happening for Minneapolis because, and I didn't get to mention this last video because this kind of got swept under the rug, maybe just, it wasn't on the radar. But in the Minnesota City, or the Minneapolis City Council, 4 seats had flipped and to, they were DFL seats and they're still like the people occupying those city council seats are still DFL, but they specifically also a part of the Democratic Socialists. And that is a big change for Minneapolis because now you have Frey, who is old guard DFL, and he's now going to have 4 additional people that he's going to have to be juggling and contending with, and he's going to be having a contentious term as mayor in that city with those 4 members working against him because the DFL and the Democratic Socialist ideals and their goals aren't always aligned. So that's actually going to be really interesting to watch too. And I could even see them again also pushing big changes for gun control in that city too. Granted, again, because of state exclusivity and preemptive clause, they would absolutely come head to head with that with lawsuits big time, and they would lose those lawsuits hands down. But however, I mean, these are big changes for Minnesota that's happening right here, right now, and you need to be aware of this. And with the shift over, a lot of the old mentalities are going to be out of the things that they're hanging on to. That's why you had such a bifurcation happening in their party when it comes to support of Israel versus support of Palestine, because you still have a big contingent in the Democrat Party that support Israel. And you have the same thing actually as a big split in the Republican Party too, where there's a big contingent that support Israel and a bunch that are saying like, hey, maybe not America first going on, okay? That's splits on both sides with this issue, okay? And with Nancy Pelosi backing out, there's going to be a power vacuum. And what's happening is you're seeing across the country the replacement of old guard Democrats with Democratic Socialists and the mask coming down and the Democratic Party going full communist, okay? Absolutely full socialist. That's what's happening within their party right now. We just saw it with Mamdani in New York City, and jokingly we're calling it the People's Republic of New York, and that's a huge upset, absolutely. In fact, businesses are already pulling out of New York. Off the bat, families are already packing up to leave. The city of New York is not going to be the same. In order to enact those free policies that Mamdani wants to institute, that it's not free. That's not how any of those things work. The money has to come from somewhere, and guess where that's going to come in from? Sweet taxes. That's where what's going to happen. So the population will get taxed more and more and more. And one of the things that Mamdani promised was taxing white neighborhoods even more. So any of the suburban neighborhoods where you have even if they vote left and they are suburban liberals, guess what? They're going to get more heavily taxed. Property tax, sales tax, whatever it is, they are going to pile that on in order to fund their projects such as free transportation and continuing to pushing gun control. Now, how does this tie back into Minnesota too? With that shifting, we've already seen Carter before this election, Mayor Carter, the previous mayor now of St. Paul, stating that he does want to ban firearms, and they had essentially penned legislation already to do that, and they came into conflict with the preemptive clause and state exclusivity, where St. Paul can't do this. And grandstanding, what does he do? He decides to throw the coffins of the children that died at the Annunciation Church right under the bus for that. So, dancing on their graves in order to push their political agenda. So gun control is still on the docket for St. Paul and for Minnesota. And this is particularly worrisome because, as we're seeing with what Walz enacted, allowing illegal immigrants that have driver's license being able to vote, and that's, don't take my word for it, the director of Minnesota elections straight up, we talked about this in a previous video, straight up and came out and said they will be able to vote in the elections. You're going to watch non-U.S. citizens try to take away your rights. That's a huge issue. Okay, now when it comes to St. Paul, with her being in that position, you bet they're going to be pushing the gun control portion even farther. Now, is that something they can win? No. Legally, as it pushes them to, say, Supreme Court level and even appellate courts or district, that is not something that they would win. But the problem is that the people suffer in the crossfire from this because it would have to reach that level first. So essentially, you'll see the city enact those policies. They will then get sued. In the meantime, there's a good chance you will watch the city enforce those bans on the civilian population. And then again, trapping a unarmed population in between an armed state and armed criminals, because criminals aren't going to give up those guns. They never do. That's not how nature or humankind works. We are barbaric animals in the end, right? So, civility aside, that's what will happen. And then what you'll watch happen is the city will get sued by, say, like the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus or the Firearms Policy Coalition or Gun Owners of America. Any of those groups, they tend to work together, which is fantastic, pushing a lot of good gun rights. But then it eats up time as that then has to go to appellate level and then to district level. If it goes to district level, which is what we want, and then for the district that Minnesota is in, for the federal level, because it would have to push out of state and go to federal, it is then leans in favor of the right because Minnesota is essentially a blue state in a sea of red states. There are, I believe, 11 different judges, and 4 of them are Trump appointees, and 6 are Bush appointees, and 1 Obama appointee. So it's heavily leans in favor of red as far as those gun rights. And even then if it goes to the Supreme Court level, that's another thing that it'll probably die on the floor there and be overturned. But the civilian population will suffer in the meantime as their rights are stripped away, even if it's for a limited amount of time. And hey, bad stuff can happen in that time frame. So this is what's happening with these shifting in politics. Again, the mask coming down, the Democrats going full on socialist, communist, and you're watching that shift across the country. And this is the dangerous part of it. You need to go vote in the next midterms. It is absolutely imperative. There tends to be, especially when it comes to what we call conservatives or Republicans on the right, and I don't think I would even call myself a Republican. I definitely lean more conservative, and there's Republican politicians that I like, but there's a heck of a lot of them that are against their own constituents. They're part of that uniparty. They're two sides of the same coin, and they are absolutely against you. And they're feckless, and they do nothing. While the other side of the fence runs rampant and does insane, crazy things, and yet we go just slow things down a bit. And it's, when Republicans are in power, that pushing of the Overton window just slows down, but it doesn't stop. And when the Democrats are in power, it's full gas pedal. Things are going to get crazier and crazier, okay? So it's not ending. So if you want to see that change, you need to go vote. Midterms, absolutely crucial at every level. I can't emphasize this enough. If you've got family members that typically don't vote, go drag them by the ear, drag them out of the house, and get them to go vote and go register. If you've got, your elderly family members that they'll come out every 4 years to vote, but they're not voting on the midterms, man, make it a day for them. Take grandma and grandpa out and get them a good lunch and go take them to go vote. You cannot rest on this because you're watching. If everything that has happened and has built up to this point, as far as flipping a lot of seats and getting people into good positions to help the American people, if that is undone in the midterms this next year, we will lose everything. Absolutely crucial. Go out and vote. So that's my shameless plug on all of that. Put your money where your mouth is. Get involved in that process. I did it. A whole lot of others did it. Did I win my elections? No, but I learned a lot in the process, and I definitely woke up people to the things that are happening around us. Heck, that's what we're doing some more on this channel. Yeah, we do gun stuff. We talk gun rights, and we love it. But it doesn't just end with that. To maintain your rights, you have to be involved, because a right not exercised is a right that you will lose. Anyways, it's Mike with Aegis Defense Solutions. Remember, stay prepared, not scared. God bless, and good night, everybody.